And so in this sense, if we can kind of replace fasting with worship, and what is God requiring of us? Does he require us to wear sackcloths and walk around and be humble and constantly ask for forgiveness and everything else? Or is there something more that God is asking of us? And that's where he gets to in verses 6 through 8 of chapter 58 in Isaiah. He says, "Is this not the fast which I chose? To loosen the bonds of wickedness, to undo the bands of the yoke, and to let the oppressed go free and break every yoke? Is it not to divide your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into the house? When you see the naked, to cover him, and to hide yourself from your own, and not to hide yourself from your own flesh." And then look at what the result of doing this is, of what true worship, of what God is really asking of us. "Then your light will break out like the dawn, and your recovery will speedily spring forth, and your righteousness will go before you. The glory of the Lord will be your rear guard." And if we go down to verses 10 through 12, we see it kind of repeated again. It says, "And if you give yourself to the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted, then your light will rise in the darkness, and the gloom will become like midday. And the Lord will continually guide you and satisfy your desire in scorched places and give strength to your bones. And you will be like a watered garden and like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. Those from among you will rebuild the ancient ruins. You will raise up the old age foundations, and you will be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of the streets in which to dwell." What incredible gifting there is, a reward there is for those who choose to worship God in the way that he calls us to. I don't want you to not come on Sunday mornings. But what God is saying here, I think if this was contemporary, if this was modern day, and he was speaking to the Christian church in America, he would say, "I never told you that this was about coming to church on Sunday morning at 10:30 and going to lunch with your friends at 11:30 and making sure that you stand up at the right time and sit down at the right time." And it never was about that. It's about loving your brother and sister. It's about caring for those who need care. And then the reward of that is what our reputation will be. Then your light will shine in the darkness. Then you will be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of the streets in which to dwell. We are restoring places for people to come and to be present and to be in sanctuary and to live their lives. We are creating a welcoming presence. Paul speaks about this in Romans chapter 12. He goes on and talks about where does this sense come from? Where does our motivation come from? He's talking about the salvation of God, the forgiveness of Christ, and all that he has done for us, and the incredible plan that God has set forth to restore us to him. And in verse 1 of chapter 12, he says, "Therefore, because of all this, because of the love that Christ has shown you, therefore, I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship." It is the ministry that we have to the people beyond these walls. It is the love and the kindness that we share, that you already, when I speak of this church and I speak of the people of this church, I tell them I tell others, they are the most generous people I have ever met in my entire life. At annual conference, I had somebody ask, they said, "So you must be part-time." Well, they first asked, "How many people do you have in your church?" And I said, "Well, like any given Sunday, the average is somewhere in the mid-40s. And he goes, "Oh, you must be part-time." No, I'm full-time. You guys have a really big endowment or just really generous people? I said, we have really generous people. You shocked, and I want to remind you, you shocked Rebecca Dolly on Sunday morning when I handed the check to her that Jim gave to me from the donations that you all gave. Her first words out of her mouth were, "From such a small congregation." Your generosity is miraculous. But I want to encourage you, continue to be generous. Not just in your financial giving. There's opportunity here to build relationship with people, to get our hands dirty, to love on people in a direct way, to minister to them, to share the love of Christ within words and presence. And so as we consider this, remember the rewards that Isaiah spoke about. What will people say about us? We have the promise that as we enter into ministries like this, and we do things like this, that people will look at us and say, "I see their light shining." In that congregation is a place where I want to dwell. They are filling the gap where the gap is present. So there, as I understand it, there won't be an official vote. There won't be anything like that taken. But I know the board will get back to us about some way in which to decide whether or not to partner with His Hope Ministries and covenant with these other 11 churches about whether or not we can fill this gap. And so I look forward, and I am encouraged, and I am hopeful about what that answer will be. If you would please stand and sing our last hymn for this morning.